Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another AgileAssets Product Showcase webinar. We host these webinars monthly covering different products and services offered by AgileAssets. My name is Barry Raskin. I'm the Marketing Director here at AgileAssets. Today, we are talking about how to leverage Esri Collector for ArcGIS with your AgileAssets solution. Esri's Collector for ArcGIS is a mobile app that can be used with AgileAssets asset management system to perform basic asset management, asset acquisition and inspection workflows. From this webinar, you will learn what and when to use Esri Collector for ArcGIS for inspections and asset collection, the benefit value of using Esri Collector integrated with AgileAssets solutions, and working with AgileAssets client implementation services for configuring Esri Collector to integrate with AgileAssets solutions. A couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send a link for all of you to be able to watch and send to your colleagues next week. The slides will also be provided to you along with that video. This presentation today will last about 45 minutes, leaving time at the end for questions. If you have questions, enter them into the Q&A window, and we will address them at the end of the presentation as time permits. At the end of the webinar, you will also be offered a very short survey. Please take a moment to fill it in so that we can continue to improve these webinars going forward. Our presenter today is Johan Terblens. Johan is a Senior Principal Solution Architect at AgileAssets, where he and his team provide support across all AgileAssets client implementation service projects, which spans over 22 states. Johan has over 20 years of experience as a solution architect and developer. He has designed and developed solutions for various industries, including transportation, like road, rail, and airways, mining, engineering, telecommunications, and utilities. His specialized skills are in the design and implementation of asset management, spatial GIS, land information systems, linear referencing systems, and engineering solutions. Johan's mastery of the Esri platform further advances AgileAssets' expertise in GIS-based management solutions. Johan has a Bachelor of Science degree in Electronic Engineering from the University of Pretoria in South Africa. And with that, I hand it over to Johan.
Thanks, Barry. Welcome, everybody. Looks like we've got a nice audience online, and we hope you'll enjoy today's presentation. I'm going to start it out with just a few PowerPoints just to set the context and help everybody get on the same page, but I'm definitely planning on doing some demos today and helping you see how this technology can be used. I think the focus, go to the agenda a bit, the focus today won't be so much, I'm going to have one or two slides on the back end, won't really be so much on the technical side of things. It's going to really be more focused on what's the business values, what are some of the use cases that you think you might be wanting to use it for, and we're going to also invite you to let us know some of your use cases as well. And so, and that's kind of what we're going to do today. We're going to start off a bit about what is Collector, just so some of you might not have used it before. I think as well, because we probably have a various group here, that some technical, some more business, some more GIS, so you probably know the GIS platform more, some don't. And so you'll forgive me if I try and kind of keep it general so everybody can understand. And so that's basically what we're going to do today. And then right at the end, we're going to talk a bit about implementation approach, how can you take this a bit further and work with AgileAssets on actually getting one of these up and running. So if you forgive me, the first few will just be a few slides, and then we really get into the demo. I'm sure that's what most of you would like to see. So, what is Collector? So it's an app, so we're used to the mobile world these days as we've got apps instead of applications. And really what apps is about is just doing something not very complex, but doing something very simple and not having a lot of functionality, but kind of keeping it so it's really functional for a specific purpose. And so Collector is a very nice application from Esri, which provides you the capability of having some of your GIS data online, offline, and, having your GPS on your device right there. You can collect points, lines, areas, You can fill out some forms. You know, you can find things, search for things. And so we think it's a really useful app, and that's why we're having this talk today about, you know, how can you actually use it with our system as well. And lastly, I was just going to say that it's available on these platforms. It's on, obviously, on your iPad, iOS, Android, and then just recently it's been on the Windows 10 platform. It's been released. So those are kind of the platforms you'll be able to use it on. Now, why use Collector with AgileAssets? Now, those of you who are AgileAssets systems, hopefully most of you are AgileAssets systems users. You know, that's, as you know, we manage assets and inventory and, you know, preemptive maintenance, inspections, you know, those type of things are strong points, work orders, maintenance. And we think Collector is a very good input into this because it's a very easy user interface, you know, for maybe collecting some data out there in the field, you know, updating your asset data, you know, capturing some photos out there and having it all linked at the same time. And so that's why we think that using Collector with AgileAssets is a good option for people to look at. And I think from the audience size we have today, it's probably a lot of you are interested in that. It just provides a nice map-centric view out there of your assets. We should probably just mention, I've kept the list short because we're talking about the positive things about Collector, but we should probably just realize that it's not a silver bullet that is going to solve all of your problems. You know, there is limitations, and you have to, when you design your Collector app, just be aware of those, is that, you know, things like custom business rules and validation is not there in Collector. You can set up things like tick lists that will help people not type the wrong information, but you can't really set up a rule to say, if this is equal to that, make sure this is equal to that, make sure they fill in this form if that's filled in. Now there is another app out from Esri that's kind of in beta, which is the Survey 1 to 3 that we're also looking at closely. And that side, you can do a bit more of that, but still not very much the business rules and let's say writing a bit of pseudo code to check your things. That you can't do yet. You know, you can't really customize your screen layout. You know, you'll see the screens that I've come up with. That's pretty much how it is. You know, you can say what's on the screen, but you can't. It's going to be a kind of an up-down vertical screen. There's no way of horizontally laying out those items. And then I say just kind of screen logic, you know, as a general rule. So, you know, how to, and I'm going to show you some things where in AgileAssets it's quite easy to do. In Collector it will be quite hard. But when you use the two together, you actually see the advantages of that happening. And so we'll cover that a bit more as we go through the demos as well. But just so you know, it has got, and there was some very good, some of you have been at GIST, there was actually some very good sessions there as well from some of the DOTs that's actually been using it. And there's some other limitations around photo sizes and things like that you have to also be aware of, you know, especially if you're out and collecting a lot of photos. Although I said I'm not going to go into the back end of things, I did want you to see this slide. Now, again, if you're not a technical user, don't put too much focus on it, but I'm going to switch between a few things, and I wanted you to at least understand what's all the components involved in the system. So obviously, first of all, we've got the database that's kind of centrally down here, and then we've got the AgileAssets management system over here. And your normal Agile world is kind of on the right-hand side here, is people being their browser. They'll be able to do all their asset management through that. And so that's how I've kind of got as the office workers. And on the left-hand side here, you can kind of see the stack that's involved in the Esri side, which is your ArcGIS server, your ArcGIS Online for authoring your maps, and then you've got your different devices that, you know, on the different platforms that you can actually connect up to that maps that you've authored. And so that's kind of just the background. I just wanted to show you, because I'm going to switch a bit between, you know, one of our screens, and I'm going to switch to Collector a bit, and then just so you can see the same information represented in both worlds. And I think the other thing I wanted to say was that I think a question that comes up a lot is, you know, what version of AgileAssets do you need to work, you know, for Collector to work? Now, what you'll see in this little diagram here is that it's actually ArcGIS server talking to the database over here. And so the answer is really, it's more really about ArcGIS server versions, and because we, in AgileAssets, we use Oracle Spatial as our, or Oracle Locator as our spatial storage format, Esri is able to work directly with our data. And so really, if you got from version 7.0 onwards in our system, you should be okay to be able to use Collector on the data. There's some caveats around all these things, but we'll talk to that at the end, you know, when we get into the project discussions. But yeah, so just to help with that. But the reason for that, like I said, is really all about ArcGIS server talking to the database and not AgileAssets when you talk about Collector. I did want to stand still for this just very quickly again. Again, I don't, the GIS folk will probably understand this, that's online. So one of the things I'm going to show you at some stage here is I'm going to show you a synchronization step. And I just want to have this quick slide up here just so you understand when I'm doing that, why we're doing that. So one of the things you'll find that for offline editing, now online editing hasn't got a lot of these limitations, but for offline editing, and that's what Collector is used for the Esri, you have to use Esri's full versioning tables. And so when you do that, it kind of means that in the background, Esri creates 3 tables for 1 table, and that's how it stores the versioning. And that basically means you can't run anymore directly against the AgileAssets table that you would be able to do with online editing. And so when you talk about offline editing, there is going to be additional steps where you basically have to either synchronize to AgileAssets or from AgileAssets, and I'll show you that step. And there's various ways to configure this. I've just done one way, which is just put it in one of our system jobs. And it's got a back-end step that's synchronized. But I'll show you that when we do the offline editing. So, with further ado, let's get into the demos, because I think that's what most people would like to see. So what we've done with the demos is broken a bit into what we call use cases. And so these are like common ways we think people will be using our product together with Collector. And I'm going to kind of start out very simple, and then just so everybody gets a feel for it, and then I'm going to get more and more involved as we get into editing and so on. So the first one we thought of is just, you're a field worker, and you would just like to basically search for an asset. So you want to search on an asset by a number. Maybe you've got a work order that somebody's given you, and you basically want to go out and search for that specific asset. And you want to see some information about the asset, and you may even want to see photos about that asset. And so let's look at a demo of that in action. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually show you, just so you understand it better, I'm going to show you the AgileAssets screen. So this is just so you can understand what's been configured. And this whole demo I'm going to actually use signal systems. And the reason I picked signal system was because it's actually got some nice related information. And that's a common scenario you'd probably have in your assets, where you've got basically one asset with multiple components and things linked to it. And so I thought signal systems would be a nice one to demo on. And basically, so what I'm in here is I'm in the AgileAssets systems, under my asset inventory, and I've basically gone to my signal systems inventory. And so this is the list of all my signal systems. And I've just highlighted the one row here, and you can basically see the information about that specific signal over there. And then on the right-hand side, you can actually see some things that are linked to it. Now, for this demo, I've only really taken 2 of these, which is pole assemblies and components. So let's click on pole assemblies. So we see there's 5 pole assemblies configured for this specific asset. And I'm going to close that, and let's go to components. There's actually 33 components that make up this signal system. So you can see these cabinets and all these things. And so let's see what this information then looks like in Collector as well. Something else I can just show you is that on this one, we've also got a photo in our system. So if I go to attachment, there's a photo over there. Okay. So the next question is, how do we see that all in Collector? So the first demo I'm going to show you is really going to be online. And so it's not really offline. The next one, which I'll show editing, I'm going to show you an offline demo of the same information. So let's switch to our iPad. So I'm using an iPad today. So it's got the iOS collector. So you'll see the collector icon there. I'm going to click on it, and it's going to open my collector. I'm going to sign in with my, it's already cached my ArcGIS online credentials. Now I've got two maps here, so I'm going to start off with the online map, which is this right-hand side one. So I'm going to just click. I'm going to try and explain as I do these actions, because unfortunately on the iPad, because you're using your finger, there's no cursor that's going around. So I'll try and talk you through some of the clicks I do. So I've just clicked on that, and now it's going to open up my map. Now the first thing it does, it actually zooms to my GPS position, which is great if I was actually outside, but I'm sitting and you're actually seeing there where our office is at. And so that's not very useful because, you know, normally I would be outside. So I'm just going to, on the top there, you see that little GPS icon. I'm going to switch it off. And then I've just got a bookmark. So this probably shows you some basic functionality you have in Collector. So I'll just set up a bookmark before into the area where I want to go. So this puts me more into the area where I've actually got some signal systems. So if I zoom in there, you actually see there's a signal system with some poles, assemblies around it. And what I can do here is let's say if I click over here with my finger, you can probably not see there, but it's highlighted a bit of a greener background, and now it's kind of showing me the information for that specific signal system I clicked on. So if I was standing right next to it with my GPS, I'll be able to pick the right signal system that I was looking for. So that's the one use case you see. People's out there, they're standing next to some asset and actually want to get some more information about that asset. But we really said we wanted to search. So maybe you've got a work order and you need to go out and actually go and fix something. So then you basically use the search function up here, so that little search cursor, and you can basically type any number, and that's configured, you know, when you set up your collector map. So I've already done the search before, and it actually remembers my previous searches. So I'm going to quickly click on it, and then I hit the search down the bottom right. And basically now on the top there, if there was more than one coming back, there would actually be a list, but there's only one with that number. And now it's giving me all the details for that specific signal system. So I'll slowly scroll down, and now you can actually see all the information that you probably see in the AgileAssets system before. And you actually see what we also did is the labels and everything exactly matches, so that people who look at the AgileAssets system or look at Collector, you know, knows where to look for specific items. So I'm going to scroll down slowly, so you can see there's quite a lot of information for this one. What I wanted to show you at the bottom, you start seeing all the related information to that specific asset. So to do that, I'm going to click on the pole assembly. I'm going to click on the view right next to it. Then it brings up all, so there's actually, if you remember, there were 5 in the AgileAssets system, and there's all 5. To see the information for one of them, I have to click on that one row. So that's the one pole assembly that we've gotten back. I'm going to hit back then. If you want to go back, you just hit back on top, back another one. I want to actually see the components, so I'm going to click on view below components, and again I have to click on a specific one, and now to show me the detail. So this is a detection detector component, and I can get all the information about that. Go back again. If I scroll down a bit further down, you'll see there's actually attachments showing there, and so when you click on it, it'll show a little icon, a thumbnail, and if I click on the thumbnail, it will actually show me the photo that's linked to that asset as well. So that's our very simple use case. I know I've done it online, but you can do the same thing offline. And so you can actually take the information offline if you know there's going to be no connectivity where you're going. But we think this is already kind of a very useful scenario for people to use that need to go out and maybe find a specific asset, you know, using your GPS. And we think that's a very useful use case already. But I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, I really want to do the editing part. So let's get into that. Go back to our PowerPoint. So let's look at another use case. So in this use case, oops, I'm on the same one, so So there. So as an asset collector, I'm saying I would like to, capture a new asset or inventory item spatially. I want to stand there and capture its position. I want to update an existing asset or inventory's properties. So maybe I'm going out and doing some enhancement of all my assets out there, but I have to physically be out there and see what's the barcode maybe on the cabinet so I can capture it. And then I want to capture photos for my assets as well. And obviously these devices are quite nice to be able to do that. I'm showing something else there. I just thought I'll bring it up. I'm showing one of the new Trimble receivers there. And I thought why I just bring it up is because, as you probably all know, is more on the GIS side. Before there was this really, you kind of stuck on the Windows mobile platform for some of the, or even now these days they're running Windows as the operating system on some of the tablets for the high-end precision GPSs. And, and I know, just for example, Trimble's just brought up one that actually enables you to link on your iOS or Android devices. And why this is great is now you can actually do sub-meter accuracy data capture using iPad. But obviously you'll need your more expensive GNS receiver with auto-correction switched on in the field. And then you will actually be getting a very high accuracy GPS. Still for post-processing, you still have to use something more like ArcPad. Some of you've been doing some of the offline things. If you're dependent on post-processing, you're probably still going to be more stuck in the ArcPad world, just because the post-processing is not yet available using these receivers. There's really a real-time correction in the field that you can use this for. So I thought I'd just mention that. But let's do a demo of that. I'm going to switch back to, and so for that, I'm going to go straight to my iPad again. So we're going to go back to Maps now. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go offline. And so the first thing you'll see is, if you look at this left-hand map over here, you can see my cursor. It says a little cloud with a download there. That shows you that map is downloadable. You notice the right-hand one that I was showing before doesn't have that cloud. So that's not been enabled for download. So let's click actually on that little download icon. I'm going to put a little caveat around it that's saying, when I'm doing the demo today, I'm actually not going to go offline, but you'll have to trust me that it's actually working offline. If I do go offline, I'll lose my air server, and I won't be able to show the screen on the iPad. And so let's just zoom to area. So the first thing you can do is you can kind of zoom to area. I'm going to switch on to map detail on the bottom. When you switch to map detail, you'll notice there it actually says the size that it's estimating for you. That size is probably mostly due to, there's not a lot of data on this, it's probably mostly due to the base map that it's going to download. So let's hit download. When we hit download, it's actually going to start a little progress there, and it's going to download. It's going to take maybe a minute or so, and while it's doing that, I'll just talk about why it sometimes takes a bit longer. So when it downloads this, it actually downloads the base map. So depending on how big area you're looking at, it will actually download all those little tiles for you. The other thing it's going to actually download is, this is more for the GIS people, when you set up your pick list in Esri, it actually works with domains. And so when you're in offline mode, you actually need those domains available for your pick list. And so we'll also be downloading, in addition to your data, we'll actually be downloading those domains as well. So that actually means, and that's probably a good tip for you, when you design these domains, just be really careful, because you probably wouldn't want a 100,000 row lookup to be synchronized down to the mobile. And so when you do the design of these systems, you have to really be aware of it. Something else that's happening that I'm going to talk about now, because we're going to cover a bit when we have to synchronize, is that the way Esri works is when it goes offline, it actually automatically creates a version for you. So in Esri, for those who are not necessarily GIS people, you can think of a version as a work area. And this work area is kind of isolated to whoever is connected to that work area, and so nobody else can see that changes. So right there, it's finished downloading our map, and we're kind of ready to use. And I'll talk a bit about the versioning now, but just think about it at the moment, it's kind of created this workspace already, so when we synchronize back, it's actually going to synchronize those changes back into this isolated workspace, which Esri calls version. So let's open our offline map now. And you'll see now there's actually, it's showing 2 arrows now, which means I can now synchronize. And when I click it again, it will synchronize. But first we want to capture some data. So again, I'm not outside, and so what I'm going to do is normally you would be using your GPS to actually capture your data. But I'm just going to go into this one area. I want to show you, if I pan to the left, you'll notice, that's the extent of what we synced, and so it's only showing the base map right to the end there. So let's go to this intersection over there, and we say, well, we're going to capture a new signal system. So let's do that. So I'm going to click with instead of using my GPS, because I'm not outside, I'm just going to click there, and luckily Collector has got this option here. We can say collect right where I've clicked. And now it will automatically bring up all my different intersection, my signal system types, and this I configured in Esri beforehand. And it actually matches the AgileAssets class codes. I'm familiar with those. And so I'm going to pick my intersection. And now, there's quite a few I can populate. I'm just going to put today's date. And you'll see it knows what type of field it is. When I use the drop-downs, it will actually, it will come from the same drop-down types as what we use in AgileAssets. And so we've kind of made it that the domains in Esri kind of matches our drop-downs. And so you can basically specify, different attributes here. I'm just going to go down. There's one important one I want to highlight, because I'm going to actually use that so we can pick up the one that we captured. And I'm just going to call it Demo 100. So just remember that name, because we're going to see that hopefully a bit later on when we synchronize back. And so that's good, and you can obviously complete all the fields. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that. And then on the top right here, you'll see there's a little submit that I'm going to hit. So I'm going to hit the submit. And what it's going to do now, you probably haven't seen it, but it popped up a very quick little thing, it's saving on device. So that's how you know it's offline. It's actually, if you hit submit when it's online, it will actually go directly to the database and save it. But now it's actually saved it locally on the device. And so now, if I want to go back in, I can now click on that new signal system, and there's the attributes that I've populated. I'll just highlight a bit there that you see that the signal system name there is set as auto. What we didn't want to do, and that's one of the limitations, again, we said we have in Collector, you can't do all those rules. And AgileAssets, the signal system name has to be unique. And so what hopefully you'll see is when we synchronize back, it's going to, it should be giving us some unique ID. And that's how we kind of do the rules then in AgileAssets system. If I then go, I'm going to copy. So now if I want to go down, I'm going to go down. I want to actually link a pole assembly. So previously we used view, so now I'm going to use new, because I want to capture a new single pole assembly. And I'm going to get and click on the map, and you'll see there's a little nice little thing there. If I know, I want to put it exactly there. I can give it a nice number if I want to. And I can actually say, what's my foundation type? It's, okay, I'm just going to do it very simple. I'm going to hit submit again. So now it's actually saved that pole assembly to this. Let me do one component very quickly. Do the same thing, click on the map. And again, normally you'd be using your GPS. I'm just using it. I'm going to say this is a cabinet, and I have to leave it at that. Submit it. Okay, the one other thing I want to do is maybe just take a photo. So let's do that. So how do you take a photo? You actually have to edit this specific record. So once you've captured it, it's not over. You can actually go back and edit something. You have to click on this little icon there, and you say edit. And now it switches back to edit mode, and you can now change any of your attributes. So let's do that. So we're not going to change one of our attributes. We actually want to take a photo. So when you switch to edit mode up here, you'll actually get a photo over there. So what we want to do is take a photo. So pick up my iPad, and I hit that icon, add attachment, take a photo. Now again, I'm not outside, so I'm going to cheat a bit and bring the outside in and take a photo of there. And say on the right bottom there, you say, use the photo, and I'm done. And then I just have to hit update again to say, save that. Okay, so the whole time now we've worked offline, and we get back to the office, we get back to where we can receive it. And now when I go back to the map, it's very small, but hopefully you can see it right there next to the synchronization is showing a red circle with a 3 in it. That tells me there's been 3 changes in this offline map. So I'm going to hit the cloud again, and when I hit the cloud, it's going to actually synchronize it back to the database. So this, unfortunately, we have to pick up the story again about versioning, because basically what it's going to do now, it's going to post it to this separate workspace. And so nobody will be able to see these changes unless you basically synchronize them to what they call the default version. And so I'll show you a very quick step, and again, if you're not a GIS person, don't worry about it too much. The GIS folks will know that that's a typical step you do, and it's actually not a bad step to have, because that's how you would do. A lot of you probably have the question, how do I make sure that before somebody submits something to my database, they actually did it correctly? You know, somebody didn't go out and capture the wrong information. And so that step in between actually gives you the opportunity to do your quality control step as well. So somebody on the GIS side can go in with the GIS package, and they were able to actually view these changes that's happened. And there's actually a nice tool, which I'm not going to show you today, but there's a nice tool in the Esri desktop where you can actually compare it. So you can say, this offline map edits, how did it change from our default version? And it will actually exactly tell you, oh, there was 2 records inserted, there was 1 updated, there was 1 deleted, you know, something like that. And somebody can very clearly make that decision, oh, that delete shouldn't have happened. You know, because the risk is if you sync back that delete, you know, maybe it's going to delete your assets. You should actually not delete it, you should set the status to inactive or something like that. And so that's an important step there for that. And my synchronization is taking a bit longer, but just because I'm on my iPad, I'm also using the air server, so my Wi-Fi is being limited a bit. So there it's synchronized it back. So what does this look like? And again, don't worry about this next step too much, but I do have to show it to you because without that I can't actually synchronize this data back. And so now we're in ArcGIS desktop over here. And in desktop, I actually want to see, I'm gonna use the one tool to say I actually want to see what the changes were. And so in the bottom here, I actually want to find that specific record. I'm just going to close it here so I can open it up again. And what I have to do, I think I'm already in edit mode. So let me just stop editing. Yeah, so when I stop editing now, it's just in edit mode. You see the demo 100, very small on your screen, but unfortunately there's not much I can do to make it bigger here, but over there is the demo 100 that we just captured over here. But it's only in this version over here. So what I have to do now is put it in edit mode, and again the GIS folks will probably know the step that's using versioning. I have to put it in edit mode, and then I have to do what they call a reconcile and post. So the reconcile and post has another advantage in that it will actually pull down the data from the default version and compare it with data that's changed. And so this will enable us to basically see any conflicts that happen. So if somebody's changed the data that I've done, and so I basically say I want to default there, I'm pulling down the data from the default version. This will tell me if there's any conflicts. Now, nobody's else been editing it, so I'm good. And then once I'm happy, I'm going to post all those changes to the default version. So once I've done that, I've kind of done my initial part, which is kind of get my data into this published version. Now, on the Agile side, we still have to synchronize now because it's still sitting in this separate workspace that Esri uses. And so the way I'm going to show you that is I'm going to go to one of our system jobs, and there's different ways of doing it. I'm just going to run the system job, and that's going to do that for me. And once the system job is run, we should be able to see this information in the AgileAssets system. Give it a moment there. It should be done very soon. I'm trying to get it done more quickly so we can actually get to inspections as well, because I really want to show you that. Let's go back to the AgileAssets system. So I'm going to retrieve data, and hopefully we'll be able to find. Oh, I didn't do the synchronization, forgot that step. So I'm going to say sync from mobile. And it should be very quick. And if Murphy would have it, I get the error for the first time. So it's giving me an error there, unfortunately. So my synchronization has not worked. Double check if it has come through, and at least some of the data. So what you should have seen is one I've played with earlier. I'm not going to stand still because I still want to show you the inspections. You have to take my word for it, unfortunately. But it will come back and it will show you the information as we basically capture it on the device. And the nice thing is the photos will come through as well. And so you'll get that advantage as well. But what I really wanted to show you as well was the inspections, because the inspections are another workflow we think a lot of you are going to be interested in. I'm noticing the time is running out very quickly. This will probably be a nice 2-hour demo, but I'm going to try and do it a bit quicker. Let's quickly stand still at that inspection demo. So what we want to do here is, as you know, in the AgileAssets system, you can define inspections on top of your assets. And this is actually where we think there's a very good marriage between Collector and AgileAssets. The reason is that I'm going to show you now, as you know, in Collector we said the limitation is you can't do a lot of these configurations, but in our system you can. And so what's going to be nice is this demo I'm going to show you. Let's set up the inspection in AgileAssets and then actually go and complete the inspection in Collector. And that way it saves you a lot of typing. It will be very painful. You'll still be able to do it in Collector, but you're going to save yourself a lot of time by doing it this way. So let me very quickly show you that. So I'm going to go to Asset Performance, Signal Pole Inspections, and I'm going to do I'm going to insert a new inspection type. Sorry for my screen here, I've made it a bit bigger so everybody can see. And I can now pick a signal system as well. So let me pick one that I know will work. So down here, I just have to tell it which signal system do I want to create the inspection for, and maybe what's the due date today, and do that. So let's save this. So that's saved inspection, but the important thing here is the inspection elements. And so if I right-click over here, I can say Insert, and because I picked the type as signal pole, it actually knows which inspection elements to add. And this is the things that are very difficult to do in Collector, because you can't do it, basically. You can do it one by one, but really difficult to do. The other thing you can do is, once you've got your foundation, I can then say, insert my foundation down there, and then it actually adds all the checklists that I have to go and do for that. Let's just do it for anchor rods as well. And so that's all let's save that. So that's very quickly. Now I'm going to just drop down again and just show you that in Collector. So what happens if, I'm going to do this one online just so you don't have to synchronize. Again, it goes there to my default. Actually, I want to search for that specific one I've added inspection on. So again, you have to go down to the bottom because that's where all your related information is. And so now instead of saying new, I'm not going to do a new inspection. I'm going to pick up that one I just did in the office. So over here, I can pick that signal inspection. So my inspection date, I have to edit it now. So I can give it some inspection date. Okay. And what I can now do is if I go to the bottom of the inspection, it actually shows me my related elements. So if I say view, it will actually now show me all those ones I've captured. So again, you would have been able to do this in Collector, but it's going to be very painful because you have to do it one by one. Now this inspection is kind of pre-filled out for you on Collector, and so so you can literally just go and click on that specific element, say edit, and the condition rating on this is fair, and you can put some comments if you wanted to, and lost my signal system there. And then I can also say I can edit this, and so the result is satisfactory. And my updates are not working right now, but that's not too critical. I think the big thing is I want to focus on here was that you can now do your inspections on the device as well as photos, and you'll be able to quite easily get that inspection information back down to the AgileAssets system, and it will be kind of a very useful use case, and it just shows you the power of both AgileAssets and Collector working together, so where AgileAssets can do all those business rules and all that information for you. Those are the things you can basically not do in Collector, but using the two together, you can actually have a very nice workflow going. You can also do things like, let's say you want to do a work request. We thought that would also be a nice workflow for you. So if you've got some signal system and I say, well, I'm out in the field and something is wrong with it. I've just noticed it's wrong. We thought it would also be a very nice workflow. You can actually go directly in here and capture a new work request. And so you can say, well, the work request type is going to be somebody will have to come out and fix something. It's going to be activity is going to be, and this actually brings up the activity for your maintenance management system. Let's say it's a cable problem. Actually shows you the units of that activity already, and so you can basically capture that work request right here. Submit it. And my synchronization has now gone offline, but you can basically submit that work request and go back to the AgileAssets system, and that work request will be there. And that's the nice thing. Another workflow we thought that will be really useful is that you're able to show, for example, inspection view. If I switch on my inspection view layer and I search for inspections, you'll notice there it actually highlights on the map to me all the different inspections that it does. So those are just very quickly, but that just very quickly shows you some of the use cases that we wanted to cover today. But I'm sure you can think of more, and we really want to hear from you out there. What do you think are the use cases for it? So let's get down to, I guess, what your next question is, what's next? So So what they thought of doing is quite a lot of things you have to think about when you're doing these collector. Probably some of you already have collector apps out there, and so you've gone through some of the steps as well. But we thought, well, let's come up with just some implementation approach for a typical collector project we think you'll have to do. And we kind of highlighted these 5 stages. And what we think is that the first time, if it's your first collector app you're doing, it's probably going to be a much longer project than if you're already up and going, you've got collector going out. And the reason is this, really, what we're trying to do here in the first stage is work with you, because there's quite a lot of IT requirements that goes into this. You know, are you going to VPN in? Do you have enough? How are you going to work with your GIS server? You know, do you need a mobile device management solution in place? You know, so all those things we're going to cover in stage 1, which is kind of the planning and designing phase. The other important thing you have to always keep in mind is there's a lot of business rules in the Agile Asset System, and so you have to be careful that when you design your collector, it's not aware of those rules, and so you have to very carefully design your collector app so that you don't break any of those rules, or just figure out how you're going to handle that when it comes in. And so that's what we think of the first stage, really about a design stage. Then we look at the infrastructure readiness side. Is really your GIS folks will say, well, do you want to add 100 new mobile users on here? Do we have enough licenses? Do we have enough capacity on the server to handle that? You know, the IT folk will say, well, you know, we have to now support 100 iPads out there. You know, are we ready for it? Who are they going to phone? You know, so it's all those IT things that sometimes take the longest, not really the application side of configuring it. And then we kind of think the third phase is really about configuring the solution, you know, and basically looking at if there's any training needed for that. Again, the apps are very simple to use, and so we think it's, you know, there shouldn't be a lot involved there. And maybe some training videos, because that's probably the easiest way of doing it. But we think this whole process will be very collaborative. I think it's very important that especially the GIS departments are involved, because if you want to add a new field or you just want to change something here and there, you don't necessarily want to get us involved. You want to have your own internal people doing it. And so we definitely think this would be a very collaborative project where we kind of help with the design and what rules are important, what do we have to configure maybe on the Agile Asset System to handle collector now, and have your GIS people focus on the collector side and configuring that. But again, we can do all of it, but we're happy to work with everyone. And then the last page is really, nobody ever wants to test, but I guess it's a good idea to test, you know, before we actually push this out to 100 field users, and they're going to go offline and make sure everything works. And then it's obviously the deployment and cutover phase. You know, one of the tricks obviously is a lot of times is what you'll probably find is that just moving the Esri's got their own metadata as well that goes with the whole solution, and you have to move them between your development, UAT, and production environments as well. And that can get tricky because you probably have to negotiate a bit with the DBAs on the connectivity you're going to need and all those things. And so that's really what we kind of see as a next step. And I think what we're going to encourage everybody to do is, you know, speak to your account executives, you know, set up some meetings with us, you know, kind of get this conceptual phases going. We're very interested to hear what you think are use cases. You know, I've had a meeting last week. I know somebody who's doing culverts, and they're very interested in capturing their culverts with this solution. And so we're happy to listen. And I think we also want to focus really our attention on where you think the focus is needed. You know, we're going to work on some guidance material. We're going to try and help you get this off quicker, but we think it's definitely going to be a very useful use case for you to maintain and make sure your data is correct, and everybody's, yeah, I think it'll be a good solution for everybody. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody, and I'll really try to push through this quite quickly so we actually take some questions, and I think so Barry's going to have a look at any questions online.
Thank you, Johan. There are a couple of questions. If you have questions, type them into the Q&A panel in WebEx. But the first question is, I understand you can't attach a photo to the inspection itself, and then there's no way to keep track of which photo relates to which inspection. Is that true?
No, you can attach the the photo, you can attach it to any record, really. And so, so it's possible. And so when you synchronize, it actually takes the photo with that record that you attach it through. I think the example I had here, I think I showed you already, was the signal system. And so when I captured that signal system photo, it actually did show it in our system for that specific signal system. And so you can link them together.
Okay. GDOT has a rule for creation of new signal ID, that is the FIPS code, next sequential number for that country. Assume that will continue to be supported?
Yes, so that's a very good example I actually have one of, I just don't have time to show that, but that's a good example of where we've got and sometimes these codes are very complex, the calculation of it, because it takes this field and takes that field, may even take a connecting field. And so there's things you have to be aware of, because collector won't do it. So collector won't do it with it. So that's an important step, is when you bring the data over from collector, that's not going to be supported. And that's one of the things you have to kind of then handle as part of this project, is how do I then still synchronize that? And I had an example here where I use our update table functionality to actually regenerate those numbers for the data coming in from collector. And so, there will have to be probably some changes, because now people are not going to enter it through the AgileAssets screen anymore. The AgileAssets screen might have run those rules, and now you'll have to have some additional step maybe for data that's coming in from collector to actually run those rules on top of that data so that everything still stays valid.
Okay, the next question is, can you take multiple photos, such as north, south, east, and west for the intersection, and one for the inside of the cabinet?
Yes, so you can set up, and that's a configuration step in Esri. You can set up what records have attachments, and so you can have it at different levels. So yeah, you can have a photo for the signal. You would have one, and you can have multiple ones that's linked to the same ID, if you want to think of it that way. And so, yeah, that's definitely, those options are definitely possible. Obviously, you have to make sure that that's also then configured in the AgileAssets system as well, because else you won't be able to see the photos. And so you just have to make sure it's also in that. But AgileAssets can also handle multiple photos. And so both of us work very similar, collector and AgileAssets.
This one was asked earlier. What version of AgileAssets is needed for the collector app?
Yeah, so I think that was why I tried to address it. I knew that was going to come up, so I addressed it right in the beginning. And that's basically, you should be okay from version 7.0 onwards. Why I say 7.0 is at some stage from 6.8, we kind of moved where the geometries are stored. And so, and I think it's already in 6.9, but so to be safe, I'd say 7.0 forwards. There's a few tricks with some of them. Yeah, so the coordinate systems might be a bit different between 7.0 and 7.1. But definitely that. I think another question that comes up is sometimes, what's going to be in the next release is going to help with it. And some of the registration parts and so on is, I think, what we're hoping to get into the next, where you have to register the table of Esri. Hopefully that's going to be in the next release, and that's going to help speed up some of this development. But definitely you can do everything right now in 7.0 and upwards, so 7.1, 7.0, 7.1.
Next question is, can Esri Collector be used for bridge inspection?
So that's a good question. And my answer is going to be probably not. I'll tell you why. Unless your bridge inspections are very simple. And the reason is you've probably seen the screens there. Bridge inspection is probably one of the most demanding screen applications you get. And so in theory, yes, but in practice it's probably going to be very difficult, because you will have to see, when I did it on collector, you have to go kind of back and forward. So you go forwards to everything that's related. So in a bridge you would typically have spans, and so you might go into the spans. But if you're doing an inspection, you would have to probably do an inspection for the span. And so you're kind of 3 levels down. And by the way, I think Esri only supports 3 levels of drill down about a collector. And so, and you might hit limitations, and bridge inspections, I know there's also a lot of things about, if this is that, then show me this, you know, and those are the type of things that's really hard to do in Collector. So bridge inspection is probably the one I would say I'd be very scared to do in Collector. You know, things like culverts and signs and signals and so on are some of the easier ones to do, but it's very screen intensive. We probably need some horizontal layout, not just vertical. You know, some rules that might be quite difficult. But if your inspection is very, very simple, where maybe you just want to do the photos of your inspection. You know, that's some scenario we thought of. Maybe you want to just use the device and have the photos linked up with your inspection. So maybe you go and do your bridge inspection and use Collector just for the photo part of it, and still have some other way of capturing the other data. That could be an option.
Last question right now is, can we get a link to the recording of the meeting or a copy of the slide deck? And yes, next week, for everyone who is registered, you will get an email with a link to the recording as well as a download for the slides. Are there any other questions right now? Oh, it looks like there's another one here. This is a secondary one having to do with the photos for the inspection, to keep track of which photo goes to which inspection. It says the bin you can't see in AGIL after syncing, just in Collector and desktop?
So in ArcGIS Online, you can actually see attachments. Trying to think, yeah, you can see the attachments in ArcGIS Online. I don't have one open right now, so I've quickly shown you. But as far as I know, you can actually see the attachments in ArcGIS Online, as long as it's in your map. So you have to make sure it's it's configured in the map that you're showing.
Okay. Are there any other questions from anybody? We still have a minute. Okay. Oh, no, that was someone just saying thank you, and thank you back. Well, thank you from all of us at AgileAssets. Concludes this webinar. Please take a moment to fill out the very short webinar survey as you exit the webinar. It'll help us for future planning. We look forward to having you participate in one of our upcoming AgileAssets Product Showcase webinars coming up later this month and next month. Thank you all very much.